start teaching early, or you can just teach until you're ready to
So you want me to
it's up to you. I used to do that. Interpretation. Well, you just tell me to do. But then the thing to do is maybe we should get together because we need to show you how to really that's a really great one.
We're not working on ourselves. Just.
But then that's what I mean, rehearsals. So you show them you have a copy of that?
Yes.
Come over here, we can get one. If we move it over here, we can go to one other table.
Garmin, we need about 24 more inches of cord. I don't think it just a little bit more, Garmin.
There's an extension here.
Okay. And my computer has enough there. Actually, there's a multiple prong cord. Sorry I have to funnel you to these two sections, but hopefully the screen is large enough for you to see. I'm going to move back, actually. There will not be power. But there's some Hey, thanks everybody. I'm just going to get a microphone to make sure there's no trouble here.
They're right there, Carmen.
Thank you.
Okay, now this is a little bit harder on Zoom, but it's better than nothing. So this is what we've got. So does anybody not have a handout that wants one? One between the two of you? Okay. I think I made 25, and I can make more. Right here? Thank you. Okay, so I do have extras if anybody wants their own. Do you want one, Ken? Okay. Well, I'm grateful for your interest initially, and thanks for being here. And what we want to do is just talk about what the opportunity looks like, answer any kind of initial questions that you have, and then sort of talk about how we formalize our interest when it's time, if that makes sense. So the first thing, and you've heard me say this from the pulpit as well, and we are putting this on YouTube so that we can all follow, is that a pilgrimage is a little bit different from your regular tourist trip. We'll go to normal sites, and there's an itinerary here that's laid out. We'll tell you day 1 through 11, right? So we'll do that, and there will be a professional guide on the trip who is not Garmon or myself. To somebody who leads trips in South Africa as their livelihood, and Gate 1 has worked with us to go to Israel and Jordan. Many parishioners continue to work with them because actually their prices are incredible. So they do a lot for us, and everything is well organized, and their guide is great. And of course, what's nice is in this case, and in the last 2 as well, we have a supplementary guide. In this case, it will be Garmon, who will add color to the places, like, hey, this is what happened here, or let's pay attention to this, and we get a little bit extra. And then my role is to lead us through the daily office. So we'll do morning prayer, noon prayer, evening prayer, and Compline every day. And one of those will be a Eucharist, so we'll have Eucharist every day. And so those are two of the main ways in which a pilgrimage is a little bit different. Eucharist, daily office, and then you've got 2 people from your place that are helping guide through the rhythms of the day. Again, this is an external company, Gate 1 Travel, who, again, we've just been super satisfied with. And they're the ones who have essentially made the brochure that you've got in your hands. And as you look through the days, like I mentioned, you will find what we're doing when. That's subject to change a little bit depending upon weather. But one of the nice things is it'll be winter there. It'll be summer here. So this is a heat trip from Houston. And because we're going right when we're going, we've timed it really well so that we can still ride the cable car up, because that closes 2 weeks after we come back. Okay? So Garmon's going to show you a few slides in just a second, and I'll project them here so that you can kind of put some pictures with some of the places that we aim to go. And again, Garmon, you'll already get to see him adding a little bit of color to sort of what this looks like. The front page gives you an estimate. And it's an estimate because airfare is subject to change, A, and B, the more people who go, the less the rental of the bus. So we've chosen to be a private group. Now, there's a disadvantage to a private group. The disadvantage is that if there's, let's pretend, 25 of us, the cost of the bus will be distributed more heavily than if there were 40 of us. So if you went to gate1travel.com, you would probably find the trip is a little bit less than what you're seeing here. I mean, like $70. And the reason being is we've calculated on 25, they're calculating on 40. If we hit 40, the price would be the same, and we get more meals than their regular trip, and we decide our itinerary as opposed to them deciding our itinerary. I don't know if that makes sense. So I just want to be fully transparent, that's it. When you look at estimated cost, we're almost, we're not a year, but we're 10 months out. So airfare is subject to change. And what they've based on right now is a KLM flight that has us go through Amsterdam, then to Cape Town, and then on the way back, we'll go from Joburg to Charles de Gaulle, which is in Paris, and then we'll fly back to Bush. And on the way back, Joburg to Paris, Charles de Gaulle. So instead of Amsterdam, we'll go through there. And I think then that'll be Air France on the way back, and on the way there, it'll be KLM. Different airlines. And they code share, I think KLM shares with United. So is it Delta, KLM? And then Air France, though, is United. So, they're with Delta too, the Star Alliance. So you can record your miles. You can still get your miles with the ticket. Everybody, every time we do this, people say, and this will be our 3rd time at St. Thomas, giving this a go, hey, I've got points and I want to use those, or hey, I'd rather fly business class. That's great. So what you would do in either of those cases is you look at the land cost only, and then essentially you'll book your own first class ticket, or if you say, I want them to book first class, They'll do that with you, and we'll just be in contact with them. They always get us where we need to go. So if you fly first class, or if you use your points and you don't fly with us, they'll get you from the hotel and bring you right on to the trip. I hope that makes sense. And they do that very well, and they do it seamlessly. It's a long flight. It is. It's 2 longish flights. Yeah. But that's just what it is. We'll leave out of Bush. And what we'll do is we get closer for people going on the general group flight. Most of us do go on the group flight. And you could get business class on that flight, or you could do economy plus on that flight if you're so inclined. There's an upgrade, right? That's you would pay to the travel company or on your own. So we'd all be together. But typically what we do is we arrange a carpool. The first year we hired a bus. It didn't come. So we arranged a carpool really fast, and we all made it. I mean, they were like closing the door when Frank and Carolyn Atchison walked through. I'm not making that up. John?
Does Gate 1 provide transfers if you look through them flight-wise?
Yeah.
If you don't look through them flight-wise, you're on your own transfer.
No, they will do a transfer. There may be a nominal fee. Last time there wasn't. Right? Like when you guys flew to Jordan, they transferred you and it was the land-only cost. There was no extra. So we'll see, but if there is a transfer fee, it would be like $10. I mean, it's insubstantial compared to what you are seeing as the total cost. That's a little bit about logistics, and maybe I bored you to death, but let me pause and see if you've got any questions about that. Then I'm going to tell you the most boring thing, which is like, what do I do if I want to go? And then Garmon will tell you why you ought to go. Does that seem okay? What do you do if you want to go? We actually get a 5% discount over every price you see if we pay by check. Now, you can call them and book directly if you want to, but if we pay by check, 5% off. So we prefer to do that because it's not an insubstantial amount of money, 5%. Right? In this case, if you book your air and land, you're talking about $225 off, right? So what we do typically is we have people write their deposit to St. Thomas. We send them a deposit to hold our spot, to hold airfare. Now, it's only non-refundable if it's the week before, essentially, and you say, I'm not going, right? Once they buy your airline ticket, I can't refund it. So if you're in for air, they'll tell us when the refund point is. I don't know when that is yet, right? But that's when we're past a certain threshold. Sometimes they can change a ticket. So if you drop out and somebody wants to come in, there's like a $150 change fee, and then you can have the rest of your deposit back, if that makes sense. You can make that check to St. Thomas, and we track it, and sort of we process everything in-house to make that more convenient, and so you get the savings. Bob?
I'm a bit confused on the air when you're talking about the option of buying first class or upgrade with. That's on the same flight.
It might be on the same flight. So it might not be. It depends on whether there's room available, and you might get a first class upgrade on KLM or Air France and look at United and it's less, and you might say, well, I'd rather pay less and fly on United, but I'll get there 2 hours before everybody else, or I'll get there 30 minutes. They'll take care of the transfers.
Now, again, the confusion. Going through you for the 5% discount, does that still apply to the upgrade, or the upgrade is not through you?
It still applies to the upgrade. So if you upgrade on the flight we're taking, it'll be 5% off the quote. Does that make sense? And again, there's some variability. Hopefully the number will only come down. Okay? When would you make that deposit? In the next month. How much is that deposit? I think it tells you in here. It is something like, I don't remember how much it is. Usually it's $300. It's $300 sort of down to hold your spot. Yes, Bob. John, I'm sorry.
And when is the date that's expected?
Oh, let's say the end of November, shall we? end of November, just to give you time to plan out where this fits and what budget looks like for you. John? Yeah, so you could probably transfer it. You can probably transfer that. You can probably apply that toward here. Yeah. John asked, we were going to go to Morocco, and then there was this like minor pandemic globally, so we didn't go. And some people chose to get a refund, and some people left their money in the Gate 1 account. And so you can apply. Basically, you got a credit. Yeah. There are just a couple more logistic things to tell you. I kind of think they shouldn't be optional, but they've done it. You'll see this on page 3 of 10. There's 2 optional things. One is a home-hosted dinner in Cape Town. You don't have to do that, but it's $57 more. The other is a traditional African dinner experience, and that's $58 more. I think it's best when we all do those things together, but they've broken them out. It's very likely that the total price will end up including those if the airfare goes down, which is what they think. Yes, sir?
So those are the same days you pick one?
No, they're going to work that out. This is still very preliminary. What we didn't want to do was overburden the travel agents before we knew what the group size might look like, if that makes sense. Yeah, and there's one other optional thing, and I just want to be really upfront about it. Garmon, and I agree, would love to do this while you're in South Africa, especially if you're not sure you want to go back. It is a great time to go see Victoria Falls. The problem with Victoria Falls is it's really expensive. It's expensive. It's a separate flight. And then beyond that, it's like a separate hotel and a separate tour. So it's not built into this quote. And if you look at Gate 1's prices, you're going to see what I'm getting ready to tell you, which is if you want to go to Victoria Falls, it's an add-on charge. It would happen at the end of the trip. So if people want to go, we'll all have our last day together. Some people will fly back, and some people will fly to Victoria Falls. How much is it? $1,500. That's per person for a 3-day extension to Victoria Falls, and that's just what it costs. And there's no whittling that down because Victoria Falls has its own kind of fee schedule that is in some ways like it's just not negotiable. You don't have to go, but some of you may want to go, and I'm happy to arrange it. Their criterion is that 15 people have to go to make it an add-on. So if 10 people wanted to go, we wouldn't do it. Does that make sense? And there are a few people, I'm not the only one, where I don't know if I can do it, right? Over and above what you're seeing. And we just want to be honest about that. But there may be enough people who want to do it, right? Because it makes Niagara Falls look like a trickle. I mean, right, this is like the thing. And it's expensive. So we get that, and that's why it's an option. You don't see it there, but I'm telling you. And after we get the deposits, then I'll start asking, of you who have made a deposit, how many of you want to go to Victoria Falls? And if we get to the 15, we'll do it. And if we don't, we may have to arrange that ourselves, or they'll help us arrange it kind of on our own, and they'll work with the plane ticket when they book it, if that makes sense. 3. Bob?
Is this limited to people associated with this journey?
Nope.
For example, I have a friend I traveled with a lot who's an Albuquerque.
As with all things at St. Thomas, what we do is an open invitation. My mother will be going. She lives in Kentucky. She's not Episcopalian. I don't know what she'll do during the daily office. She might go to the bathroom for a long time, but she intends to go. And of the last 2 pilgrimages, we've also brought friends, and what better way to travel than bringing friends? It's just really lovely.
Can you speak about the supplement that insurance works with?
Okay, tell me where you see it. Single supplement is if you want your own room. Now, If you're a couple, you may say, honey, it's been 50 years. We're getting our own rooms. Just know you'll each be on the hook for that extra. If you're a solo traveler and you know it, but you're willing to share with somebody, I can probably put you together and you'd skip it. Or if you say, look, life is too short, I want my own room, just know to add $420 to the prices. Can I share a room with my mother? Yes, I can. You don't have to be same gender or a couple to share a room. We're grown-ups and you make your own decision. Does that make sense? That would be for the whole trip. And that's simply because hotel rates are based on double occupancy. And this is pretty standard. Actually, as single supplements go, this is one of the lowest ones I've seen. Yeah, the last time I went on a trip, the single supplement was $1,000. And I thought they're just charging that because they can get it. Richard? They have a travel insurance option through Gate 1. It's a little bit more than a company called World Nomads, which is what I usually use. I get trip insurance every time I go in case of wrongful injury or death, right? Their insurance is good insurance. It costs a little bit more. I want to say World Nomads cost me $93, and I think their insurance is about $170. What is beneficial about booking their insurance is they hold it for you. I don't know if that makes sense. Like the tour operator is also your claim agent. So that's nice. I haven't paid the extra because I'm cheap and I'm like 43 and I think nothing bad's going to happen. But you know, we did have a lady break her hip in Israel, and we did have somebody slice their thumb open, and both people had to go to the emergency room. Like, these things happen. Jordan, we were all good, to my knowledge. So those are a couple of add-ons. I think it's pretty responsible. I'm just going to be honest. Obviously, we're going to a place with a great medical system, right? We're not going somewhere where you wouldn't want to be treated and you'd want to be extradited to get medical care. Nonetheless, right, it's supplemental insurance to your regular health insurance, and you don't have to get it, but it is a thing, and I don't have the quite bid on it, but I think last time it was about $170 per person.
Yeah, when they say trip insurance, now I understand it when it's health, not travel insurance as far as, you know.
Their insurance would cover if you got injured the week before and you couldn't get on the flight. Their insurance would cover, hey, I got COVID and I can't travel. It would cover that. I'll double check that, but that's my understanding, is that it is like a bumper-to-bumper trip insurance policy. And you couldn't go, right? Because obviously that's a lot of money to lose if you can't go, right? And I'm young and all, but I also get hurt. I would go in a cast. Because I'm that hard-headed, but I
fell in the parking lot of the parking lot, and I left the rest of the time.
So this is real, right? And those are the supplements. You'll notice there's a few dinners not covered. That's actually by my choice, because it's nice to go out and eat when you're in a different country with your friends. It is. In Israel, everything was covered. And it was a lot of falafel and schnitzel. It just was a little too much. And many of us were like, okay, we're skipping the dinner tonight so we can go out. So we've left some open dinners for you to go out in small groups. And the guide is always really good about recommending where to go. Because we're Episcopalians, you'll notice we're visiting a winery or two on the trip, in addition to some game preserves. So these are things that happen, and I do want you to know, it's helpful to say logistically, because we're all grown up, you might be really tired, and you might say, I don't feel like going on the tour today. That's your choice. And we can always say, here's how you'll catch up with us. This happened in Israel. We had to go 800 steps down to this spring, and out of 43 of us, 13 went. I think they missed out. But when we got back at 10, everybody was awake. We all got in the bus, and we continued with the day. And this is what adult travel looks like. So when you're not well, or when you say, like, I don't want wine, I want to walk around Joburg, that's what you do. Any other logistical questions before you see and hear the fun things? By the way, I'm answerable. Phone, email, in person, because inevitably you'll have questions like, what do I do? Last time it was like, should we wear compression socks? Do you recommend that we have a stool for the plane? I have nothing to say about those things, but if you want them, you can have them. But don't be afraid to ask me. Do I recommend compression socks? No, but I'm not a doctor, right? So if you want them, wear compression socks. Do I recommend protein bars? I don't recommend anything. If you need a protein bar, bring it. Like, I hope this is clear, but you can always ask me, and it's all good, right? Because these are easy answers. No, I'll usually say I don't recommend anything. You know, like, I don't want to go on record. I'm not that sure. It's like a collapsible thing, so you can put your feet up on the airplane ride so that you get less blood pooling in your ankles. Now, I hope you're laughing, but this was like 30 minutes of questions when we went to Israel. And happy to answer them because some people haven't been overseas in a long time, truly, right? So let me answer whatever I can. Some people are going to say, do you recommend melatonin? No, but if you want it, you can take it. You know, like I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Any other fun logistics questions before you get to see like the lovely part? Okay, then Garmon, I'm going to give you this microphone just because I know there's a couple people who want to hear. And you may have to do it. Slips right over your ear. Garmon, you can do your video on car insurance while we're at that.
Is that working? That works. Yeah, okay. My connection is that I was born in South Africa of British missionary parents who went out with the Anglican Church, of which we are members in the Episcopal Church. And I was born in 1958, the year they got there. So I lived in South Africa until 2000. And so I lived basically through the apartheid years. And I was there in 1994, which was the year when South Africa became a democracy and there were free and fair elections, and when Nelson Mandela was elected president. And I visited ever since then, but of course, growing up in the Anglican Church and living in various parts of the country, I have my own particular experience of it. I also, as a white male, had to do compulsory national service. I was an officer in the infantry for 2 years. We were involved in several neighboring wars, interfering in civil wars which are going on in ex-colonies nearby. So they were really kind of interesting times. What I'm going to show you is a sort of slide, what was originally a slideshow of some pictures of some of the places in which we would be going to. Not all of them, because I didn't have the final up-to-date itinerary when I put this together. And I thought I would start with, just because many of us don't actually have a good idea of where South Africa is, how big it is, how big Africa is even. So if you're at the back, you probably can't see, but South Africa is obviously at the bottom there, and it's about the size of sort of Texas and New Mexico and Arizona put together. And those gold stars are the places that we're going to be visiting, starting in Cape Town, then going up here, and then that's the Kruger Park, and then eventually ending up in Johannesburg. So we will fly from Cape Town at the bottom up to Durban, and then going to these places, which I'll talk about, then up to the Kruger Park, and then ending in Johannesburg. This is a sort of very famous tourist picture of Cape Town, the fairest Cape, and I think anybody who's been there will agree. Anybody here been there before? Probably one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Even if you've been to Sydney or San Francisco, it is truly a very, very beautiful city. And we'll be spending, I think, 3 or 4 days there. This thing's on a timer. I tried desperately to get it off the timer, so there's just another sort of aerial view of Cape Town. The cable car runs up to this point up here, from down there. And so the top is flat, as you can see, and it's a park, so there's many walks you can do up at the top. There's a restaurant up at the top. We used to climb up here, up to the top. There are many, many different routes to climb it. And there's ocean pretty much all the way around. That's just another kind of nighttime view. These famous towers apparently are coming down. They're notorious. Anyway, it'll move quicker as soon as we get over the sort of tourist pictures. And I couldn't get rid of the sound either. Okay. Once again, that's a kind of like a bird's eye view. That's the top cable car station up there. The city bowl is down here. That's the waterfront and the harbour, which we'll be talking about in a moment. This is the Grand Parade, which was the old military place where they used to have their sort of Grand Parade, the parades when this was a military outpost, before it was even a colony. And the City Hall, there's where Mandela spoke from when he was first let out of jail. I used to direct the symphony chorus of the Cape Town Symphony, the oldest independent professional symphony orchestra in Africa. And up until a few years ago when it closed down, there's another symphony there. This is the cathedral, the Anglican cathedral, the seat of the Archbishop of Cape Town, the equivalent of the presiding bishop. It's the second cathedral. This used to be in the Diocese of Calcutta when South Africa was originally founded, and then the first Archbishop was sent from England in the early 1800s, founded the school that I taught at, and they founded a cathedral here. One of my ex-students is the music director. This is the inside of the cathedral, very famous organ, and they have a wonderful musical tradition. The seat of a lot of resistance to the apartheid government, including some very unpleasant scenes. It was stormed by the police. Inside at one stage, Archbishop Tutu went in and reconsecrated it afterwards. Then still used for state occasions. This is a picture from the 70s where some rioting outside the cathedral and tear gas, as you can see from the caption at the bottom. And the cathedral is right downtown, right next to the Houses of Parliament and the Company Gardens, which is where the ships which originally came around the Cape were planted their plants from which they refurbished their vessels on the way on the sea route to India, which was the only interest they had in the Cape then, as a stopping point on the way through to India in the spice trade. These are the steps of this is the cathedral here. Important past in the struggle against apartheid. Desmond Tutu called it the People's Cathedral, and it's been called that ever since. This is another interesting, this is the original slave church. I think the third oldest church in the country. It's now a museum in downtown Cape Town, hopefully somewhere where we can go and visit. It's a very underutilized resource in Cape Town. It's about the same as Rio, I think. I'm not quite sure what exactly that is numerically, but it's not nearly as far south as South America, as the bottom point of South America. This is the cable car, which we saw from a distance. This is the city below. That's called Lion's Head, where people hike to often. Signal Hill over here, where there was a signal cannon which used to announce ships coming into the bay. That's Robben Island, which we'll talk about in a moment. This is the cable car, which is going to be closing 2 weeks after. And this is a view from the top, past Lion's Head, down to Robben Island, the city below. Unfortunately, if the weather's bad, they close the cable car.
What is South African winters like?
depends where you are. Cape Town can be can be quite cold and wet and windy, never freezing cold, but it can be a little bit sort of miserable and wet and cold and windy, but you can have beautiful days like you can here. Yes, pack some warm clothes. This is Table Mountain cable car. When the cloud settles on the top, they call that the tablecloth. This is the Waterfront, which used to be a regular working harbour, very busy prior to the Suez Canal, because all the shipping had to go all the way around Africa. Then they opened the Suez Canal, and a lot of the shipping went that way. Then in the Six-Day War, it was blocked, and so shipping came back around the Cape, and then now it's opened again. And our hotel is at the Waterfront. This is the castle, which I think is on the itinerary, which is the old fort built when it was still a military outpost, and the whole area was governed from here. South Africa was under 5 different, it changed between a whole lot of different European countries, annexed it and ruled it and sort of swapped it between each other's, all at the expense of the indigenous population, of course, the last being the British. This is a famous church, St. Marx Anglican Church, in an area called District 6. The apartheid government bulldozed all of the accommodation, all of the houses here. It was a very beautiful area, rich in culture. It was a mixed area and history, and under apartheid they bulldozed the entire place. They were going to turn it into university, but there was so much outcry. They sent these people to live way away from the city centre. They still returned for worship on Sundays. Those churches, all that was left of the churches. We hope to visit there. Robben Island, Table Mountain in Cape Town. Robben Island was originally a leper colony, and then was also used as a military outpost. There's some bunkers and things like that here. It then became a prison, a maximum and medium security prison, which was, of course, when Mandela was sent out there. It's a very interesting place to visit, and that's on the itinerary. This is Mandela himself in his prison cell. I think this is from, obviously from a documentary, but one can go and see his cell. If you've seen the film Invictus, which is a wonderful, wonderful film about him and his first years as president of rugby, yeah, the World Cup. There's a number of good films written at about this time, which I can tell you. This is Church of the Good Shepherd, the only privately owned building on the island. It was built for the lepers. There are no seats because the lepers could only stand or lie, and it was turned into a storage place. It was built in the 1800s, and then the Archbishop of Cape Town had it refurbished, and I did the music for the rededication in 1999. And we went over in the boat with a whole lot of priests and a brass quartet from the school, and and that is now back as a place of worship. Some of the penguins on Robben Island. There are penguins in colonies at various places around Cape Town, including ones out on Robben Island. I think it's a separate tour to go and see them there. Then one of the trips Mike mentioned wine. This is about an hour away into another set of mountains, the wine growing area, which was founded by the French Huguenots who came out also when they were expelled or left France under unpleasant times, and started this wine growing tradition for which South Africa is really well known. We have wonderful wines in the Franschhoek and Stellenbosch areas, and there are numerous estates. This is the Cape Dutch vernacular architecture, and some vineyards growing nearby, also very mountainous and very beautiful, and there's lots of lovely places to go and taste, wine and food there. And some interesting churches and things as well. And within easy a day trip from Cape Town. Then we take the big flight up to the top right-hand side of the country to Durban, and then this is to one of the largest river estuaries in Africa, where there's a boat trip, I think, to go and look at things like these hippopotamuses and bird life and things like that. And then nearby is also a game reserve, a well-known game reserve. This is all in the KwaZulu-Natal, where there'll be a game, some kind of game viewing activity. Kruger, Umfolozi Game Park. And then there's going to be a road trip. We're going to go by bus, head north through Eswatini, which is one of the two independent kingdoms which are surrounded by South Africa. They stayed independent throughout apartheid. They were ex-British colonies, and they've been ruled by kings since then, up to the Kruger National Park, which is this massive series of parks with wildlife in them at the top right-hand corner of South Africa. People come from all over the world to view game in the Kruger National Park and the neighboring private parks, which at one stage they opened all the fences so that the wild animals can sort of roam freely between this massive area, the size of some European countries. And then after the Kruger Park, we will head by road, I think, to Johannesburg, which is the sort of economic powerhouse of South Africa. South Africa has 4 capital cities, because when it was it used to be several countries, and they joined them together in the Union in South Africa. And to placate everybody, they kept there's a judicial capital, there's an executive capital, there's a legislative capital, and so they kept it like that anyway. And one of the things you'll see is Soweto, which stands for Southwestern Townships, which is the massive township for black people outside Johannesburg. Under apartheid, people were committed to living in separate areas. And black people needed to show their passes. They couldn't travel after dark. When I grew up, I remember there was a siren which used to go off at night, and people had to be off the streets. Black people had to be off the streets. This is Soweto. This is where Mandela's original home that he lived in, which was on the itinerary, I think it still is, where we will visit in Soweto, as well as Regina Mundi, which is the largest Roman Catholic church in Soweto, which was also the home of many of the meetings of the resistance, and also of celebration and of mourning during apartheid. It's a huge, big barn-like Roman Catholic church. Not very, very beautiful to look at, and it was one of the sites of one of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearings, which you'll hear a lot more about, because that's one of the very, very important things to come of the whole change that happened in South Africa. One of the great examples that South Africa was to the world was how to move through everything that happened. And then if we have time, this is the cathedral in Johannesburg, St. Mary's Cathedral, which is undergoing this whole area is undergoing there's a move to renew this part of Johannesburg. Downtown Johannesburg has become very, very squalid and dirty and all the rest, and they're wanting to restore this area in memory and in honor of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who was dean here at the cathedral, and then I think he was bishop at one stage. That's the inside. Also, like Cape Town Cathedral, stunning organ imported from England. But on the outside, you can't. You said walk around in Joburg. Not wise. If you don't like somebody, you could send them off to go and walk around Joburg. It's just not safe. Even in the daytime, it's the kind of place you would be. To go to the cathedral, you kind of drive into the underground garage. It's kind of and that's it. Thank you.
So you can already see what Mark is going to add to your trip, right? You got to hear and hopefully enjoy that already. Okay, so let me see if I might have forgot something. I probably did. Let me see if there's any questions right now. Yeah, please.
So, when we're out on our own having dinner on those nights, how do we pay?
Yeah, well, your credit card probably will pay unless you have Discover, but Visa and MasterCard's pretty universally accepted. In addition, I usually bring, just to be honest, when I travel anywhere in the world, I do wear like a belt but I keep my passport in. A lot of hotels ask for your passport and they keep it a concierge, but I usually bring a couple $100, and if I need to, I'll exchange it at a bank, and our guy will arrange for that. But you can exchange, although I would tell you, almost everybody says this, the credit card company will give you the best exchange rate per day, and if you've got Visa or MasterCard, you're probably in good shape. That's been my experience, although sometimes with small purchases, it's just nice to have local money, and so that's a thing that the guys will take us to do. Yeah. Please.
Back to my original confusion. I see the land cost is broken up separately for land and air.
Yep.
I would have to assume that's on the assumption that you could provide your own air.
Correct. Either you're going to use your points or you're going to pay for your own ticket. Some people, last two places we've gone, have chosen to go a day or two early to either acclimate or do a couple of add-on things, and you can absolutely do that, and the tour company will get your transfers to the group hotel when it's time.
But even if you go with their air, as you said, you still have the option of upgrading to first class within that.
You do, and I don't know what the upgrade price is yet, so if you email me, I'll push on them and they'll let us know what that would be. What would be the supplement to do economy plus or to do first class. And again, you're noticing the tiered price. If we get 40 people, it goes down $300, right? I mean, that's it, and that's what you're seeing is because the bus they book holds 40 people. One of the benefits of us going as a private group is it's our group. And there are times where we can say to the tour guide, not interested in that, let's move on. And they will. Or we can say, look, this is like a really good place and we want to stay here and we're going to cancel the next thing, and that's what they do. Or we say, we don't know what to cancel, but we want another hour here. And we get to do that. So that is one of the advantages of doing this.
So the end of November, which in the first deposit is due, is the point at which we will know how many people.
I think so. Once we get to the end of November, I'll be able to tell you, hey, great news, everybody. There's enough of us to go. And there's sufficiently enough that here's the adjustment to the cost and here's where the airfare has ultimately dialed in. Hopefully it's going to go down, although many of you know airfare is just out of control. It's out of control. If you want to go to Los Angeles during spring break, it's $800. If you go the week before, it's $157. I mean, this is just it, right? And I don't know what's going on, but charge whatever the market will bear, I guess. So this is not peak season to go to South Africa. It isn't, because it's winter, right? But we don't know, so there's a little bit of wiggle on what you're seeing.
Is winter in South Africa similar to winter here?
It varies. The Kruger Park, for instance, will be probably bright, sunny, chilly, cold, and dry, which is very good because it's not the rainy season, which means the grass is shorter and the animals have to come to the water holes. Whereas if you then look in the rainy season, the grass is taller and they don't need to come to the water holes, so you've got less chance of seeing them. So there are things like that which are, and also there's less malaria in the rainy season as well. So you don't need to take, although they'll tell us we'll get more expert advice on that, but there's less need to take malaria things, which can have side effects. Some people don't like them, you know. So it's good from that point of view. If you go to Victoria Falls, it's a good time because it's not the most water going over the falls, which means that there's less. They call the Victoria Falls the smoke that thunders because there's so much. It looks like smoke. Yes, spray, and you actually can't see the falls. So this is kind of the mid time there. So it is a good time.
Yeah.
I've been told by some people, if you're a certain age, you should not take yellow fever shots or maybe not.
So we can't say that. The best thing to do is ask your doctor. And like my doctor's Kelsey, and they have a foreign travel specialist department at Kelsey, and they'll suggest, hey, we really advise you to do X, Y, and Z based on your age and what you're seeing. You may not need a prophylaxis for malaria. I wouldn't even ask Gate 1. I'd ask your physician. I just would. I got yellow fever when I went to China. I haven't needed it again. Thank God, it's dreadful. It's the worst vaccine I've ever had. It hurt for like 3 weeks. But better than yellow fever, so happy to get it. Yeah, but you're just going to ask your doctor, and when you say, Mike, what do you recommend? I recommend you ask your doctor, because I'm not one, right? And whether it's Kelsey or it's Methodist or even your mom and pop practitioner, they're going to have a good referral to what this looks like. You can also, of course, get onto the State Department for the United States, and they'll make recommendations. Just know that if they recommend rabies, it's great to get that. It's painful and expensive. And if a rabid dog bites you, you'll be getting another rabies shot. So just to be clear, there is some benefit to getting the rabies vaccine, but you will be getting medical treatment no matter what, just so you know. I'm not discouraging the rabies vaccine. I just want to make sure you understand it's a series and you have to go back. What are the odds of rabies? I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know. Ask your doctor. I feel comfortable in going. My wife has given me permission to travel, which she does not give me everywhere I want to go. Yes. It's $300, and you can make that anytime you want to St. Thomas, and we'll be the pass-through because we'll pay by check and get 5% off. And you can even do that by PayPal. You can put in PayPal, South Africa deposit. Just let me know you're doing that so I look for it. Hey, Mike made the deposit on PayPal today. That's all you got to say. And then we'll go through the aggregate of data and we'll put that towards your account. Does that make sense? Please. The dates are firm. Yep, the dates are firm. If you want it, email me and I'll give it right to you electronically. There's no fun photos. They'll embellish it a little bit more as we get along. Expect that the separate costs, those dinners, right, those are going to roll into the main cost. They separated them out. If you really don't want to go to dinner in an African house, let me know. But in general, I think many of us will, and expect that we will probably have cooking lessons one night where we'll learn how to make local food in a South African. And so you expect that, because when we did that in Jordan, it was one of the highlights of the trip, and we did it twice. So, again, we'll add a couple of things as we go and iron this out, but you can expect the program that is in front of you to only get better. That's what I want to say. Okay, I see a motion from Rini to adjourn, and I see a second from Paul. So I'm in favor of adjourning, and if you have any questions or comments, Garmon knows about the place. I know about the tour company and about us having the daily office, and please don't hesitate to ask. Again, even if you're going to ask me about whether you should wear compression hose, go ahead, and I'm happy to take that question, right? The doctors usually recommend compression hose and walking around on the flight. This is typically recommended, but I'm not a doctor. Okay, hey, thanks everybody. I'm looking forward to traveling with you, hopefully if you go, and if not, looking forward to traveling in your absence on your behalf. Huge thanks to Garmon, because this is a volunteer on his part.